say
things look great. Things just seem to be a little tight down there. Okay? It's called dysphonia, where the muscles just squeeze the voice box. If you were to have nodules or polyps or something like that, they would be in this area right in here. And it's not just my singing voice, it's my any voice, right? And that all stemming from just plain old fear, stage fright, domestic violence in the home as a child, my parents dying not knowing what's next, just all different stages of fear in my life. I just trapped my own voice. And now I've got to unwind all that.
Wow. It's really for anybody who's ever trapped your own voice. Yeah, that series is. And that's what Shania is talking about in the new book, From This Moment On. She hasn't performed for an audience in nearly 5 years. Will you ever sing in public again?
I want to. And that's the whole point of doing this. I really can't imagine not singing again.
What happened to that one?
Well, that woman was probably scared out of her wits at that moment as well. I would already have been very afraid of being in the spotlight. I always was afraid of it.
Yeah. What was fascinating to me is that you wrote that you really were just trying to make enough money in the beginning to take care of your, brothers and sisters, and that you just wanted enough to have enough, and that you weren't trying to be a star, and that you always more comfortable being in the background. You thought you'd be a great backup singer.
Well, because also that was my reality. Coming from where I came from, it was unimaginable to ever be wealthy, for example. That was just way too far out of my reach.
Yeah, it's interesting how that conditioning, even played out in other things. Like you're saying, when you would make dinner, you would make just enough, not enough to have leftovers, just enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
You learn to be very realistic, and I think that's where that being conservative with food is.
Yeah.
I'm only going to cook what we need.
So that's what's so interesting about From This Moment On. Over the years, I've heard that story of women spiritually and emotionally losing their voices, losing themselves. It happened to you, actually, physically. So why would it take you losing your voice to trigger you to, regain yourself?
Well, my fears and anxieties throughout my whole life have been slowly squeezing my voice. I was losing it slowly and progressively. What happened is when my marriage fell apart, that crisis was almost the straw that broke the camel's back of something that had already been building.
Yeah.
It was the turning point. It was the little bit of extra weight that I could not handle, and so it broke it all open, and so was very necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely necessary.
I love the term broken open. It's a really good term. We'll be right back. Country superstar Shania Twain says she was blindsided when her husband of 14 years asked for a divorce.
I was a workaholic, and Mutt was a workaholic. So then, because of the nature of our independent careers, there were a lot of times that we weren't together, and I was very lonely, to be honest.
Shania's closest friend at the time was her assistant, Marianne. Fred was Marianne's husband.
My ex-wife started to work for them, and that's how we got to know them.
Fred and Mutt were good friends, and Marianne and I were good friends. She was my confidant, somebody who understood what my concerns were in my marriage. I said, Marianne, don't you think that my husband is acting strange? And she said, no, I don't see anything strange. I think he's fine. All Marianne did through the whole thing was comfort me, telling me that everything's fine. And I believed her, and I accepted it as being genuine.
But shortly after Mutt asked Shania for a divorce, she says she learned the truth.
I did discover the affair with my wife, and Mutt, in a quite concrete way, I said, guys, now you have to tell her. This is ridiculous, you just ordered that. They didn't want to do it, so I had to tell her. It's terrible. She was really heartbroken.
I was definitely shocked. Mutt was my partner in every sense. It really hurt. First I found out that my marriage was over. And then the next day I found out about the affair. My own friend. who I had confided in. I still can't get my head around that. I really lost my sense of trust, compassion, honesty. Forget that. That's all gone. That's dead. I crashed down and became what I consider an emotional mess. I was just so miserable. Never been so miserable my whole life.
You say you were ready to die when you found out about Martin Marianne. Really?
Sure, of course. I mean, I just wanted to go to bed and never get up.
And I know for everybody who's watching here, you know, I have friends who were betrayed that way, and little hairs on my head rise when I think about it. I don't think there's anything, well, there are things more horrible, but that feeling of, I trusted you, I confided in you, and you are the one.
Yeah.
You are the one. I mean, as we were watching this tape, all the women in here were nodding, and a couple of men too. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, it is.
You were
so
telling
true.
this person your
Yeah,
problem.
Exactly. So glad we're sitting here and talking about this today because I've come a long way since this happened to me.
Yes.
And I didn't like where I was. I was angry. I was sitting there like you going, you know, and I didn't want to be like that.
Well, before you
want to be like that.
recover, can you read from page 354? I know you've moved on, but can you read from page 354?
Yeah. So here we go. This is what I wrote. I was freezing cold all the time, and my only relief came when I strip off my clothes and climb into a steaming hot bath. 5 times. 5 times a day, that is. Yet I'd be shivering most of the time, shaking uncontrollably, my teeth chattering violently. Out of the bath, I'd wear a winter coat over my pajamas, plus wool socks and a scarf. It made no difference. I couldn't get rid of the chills, and at the same time, I was sweating profusely. It was as if my body were trying to purge itself of the emotional agony inside by forcing the pain out of my pores so that I didn't drown in it. So yes, I think I was
How long did
dying.
that last? How long did that last? That whole process?
The most intense part of that was for a 1 full week.
Mm-hmm. I know. I've heard of
shock.
people who couldn't get out of bed, who,
Yeah.
you know.
And I had to get out of bed because I had a young son going to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to act.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's okay to sometimes say, you know, right now I've got to be strong. So, and this is where I feel like I had to find the balance.
Yeah. But you also wanted to hear the details. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear the details.
Yeah.
You wanted the details. You thought the details would help you.
Yes, because through my experience of my parents dying, the accident, for example, I was responsible for dealing with the lawyers and the insurance companies, and I had to know all the awful details. How they died, every mark on their body, all of that stuff. And it was hard at the moment, but I was able to then work through what I knew, and then in the end to come to understand. And by not understanding and not knowing the details, your imagination is left to run wild, and then you start conjuring up all of these.
I would want to know details too.
Right. So,
Yeah, a lot of women do. Some say they don't, but and then you want to know, where did you go? What did you do? When did it start? Were you there when we were doing this? Were you on the phone?
and it gives you the opportunity to respond and react at the moment.
So did the
now you're
details?
like holding in all these
Did
reactions.
the details help you?
I never got the details. I never did get into the details. I phoned Marianne, of course, and did everything I could to get the details out of her, and she changed the number, and that was it.
We'll be right back.